Hey cool kids, this week's Speedpaint is brought to you by the letter G. That's right, we're back to the alphabet challenge, this time with Grunkle Stan. For those who don't know, the alphabet challenge originally came from drawing with waffles, and the basic gist of it is that you draw a character whose name starts with each letter of the alphabet. I gave myself the additional challenge that I'd only choose one character from each franchise, and that all the images would be the same file size and incorporate the letter they're representing. It was honestly tough choosing just one Gravity Falls character. I thought about drawing one of the twins, but you can't just choose one, you know? And I guess I could have done maybe Wendy or Zeus, but I ended up choosing Grunkle Stan for a variety of reasons. The foremost being that I really enjoy him as a character. He's so much fun, and I enjoyed watching him grow and develop as the series progressed. I also really needed a character for the letter G. The only other character I could think of was Gray from Snowpiercer. And as much as I would love to rep Snowpiercer, I felt like that would have been a bit too obscure. Plus, I didn't think I could come up with more to say than Snowpiercer is cool, and I like the part where Gray kills people and never talks. That's cool too. Another advantage that Grunkle Stan has is that I've drawn him a couple of times before. There used to be this one blog, I'm not sure if it's still around, it was Imagine Gravity Falls or something along those lines, and it would post things like, imagine getting drunk and singing karaoke with Bill Cipher, or imagine Grunkle Stan as a magical girl, that sort of thing, and occasionally I would do little doodles based on those. The most popular one was, imagine Grunkle Stan in the outfit you're wearing right now, and let me tell you, Stan rocks the skater skirt and tights look. Gravity Falls is definitely one of my all-time favorite Western cartoons. I think the only real competition it has would be Teen Titans or Over the Garden Wall. This is going to sound a little silly, but one of the first things that drew me into Gravity Falls is that it's set in Oregon, and I actually grew up in the Northwest. I lived in Oregon for about 6 years, and I don't think any show really captures what it's like to live in the Northwest quite as well as Gravity Falls did. I also love how well it portrays siblings. Dipper and Mabel remind me a lot of my older sister and I, although I'm not really sure who of us is the Dipper and who's the Mabel. Back when we still lived together and when Gravity Falls was still airing on TV, we used to watch it together all the time. Even without the personal connections and the nostalgia, Gravity Falls is still such a good show. I love how natural the dialogue feels, and the characters are so good, and as someone who's a really big fan of cryptids and conspiracy theories, it was such a fun show. I am super bummed that it did eventually come to an end, but I respect Alex Hirsch's decision to end the show before it got drug out for too long. And then there's the art. I adored the background art, just the set design and the coloring and the lighting, just so good. And I guess that brings us to today's piece. I know I've mentioned before that I want to get better at backgrounds, so this did end up being a bit of a background study of sorts. I actually had a little longer to work on this piece than I usually do for Speedpaint. I started painting this back in July, but kept having to push it back because other things just kept coming up, like the MS Paint video or the sketchbook tour last week. I still only ended up spending about 3 hours on this painting, which is pretty much the average for most of the speed paints I do on this channel, but I think because I started this well in advance, I didn't feel as rushed, and so I was a little more comfortable spending more time focusing on the background. It's definitely a lot more cluttered than what I normally do, but I think with the more subdued color scheme it doesn't distract from Stan too much. I also kept the line art on the background a lot looser than the foreground, partially to help Stan stand out, and also because I didn't want to clean up my sketch. But overall, I actually really like the background of this image. And then there's Stan. I don't necessarily dislike how I drew him, but I think my problem is that Stan is such an expressive and enigmatic character. He's a cartoon character. He has a simplistic design, so it's easier to make him more fluid, and I feel like I just captured none of that in his pose. I actually went through a lot of thumbnails to pick out a pose for this, and I chose this specific pose because the initial thumbnail did have a lot more personality in it, but none of that really translated to the final image, and he just sort of looks stiff. Like, it's definitely not the most static pose I've ever done, but I don't feel like it really reflects his personality well enough. And because I kept the original Toonie style for his character, I had a lot of room for fluidity that I just did not utilize. I think I tried to overcompensate with his face, and I'll be real, if you just glance at it, it's fine, but like, the more I stare at it, the more I feel like it's staring back, and that's just a little bit unsettling, I'll be real. Coloring on this was a lot simpler than past pieces. I didn't even thumbnail out a color scheme, I just kind of grabbed colors from the references I had, which it felt a little bit like cheating, but I really wanted to achieve that more natural warm palette. I kept the flat colors very simple, especially on Stan, and focused on consistent lighting over the full piece rather than individually shading each item. This method is a lot quicker, although a lot messier, but with an image as large as this one, it's harder to see smaller mistakes in the shading, so I didn't worry too much about that. I kept the shading a lot more subdued in the background than the foreground, again to help Stan pop. I also kept the lighting on Stan very soft to fit in with the warm feeling, and I really like how it came out. But that's all I really have to say for this piece, so I guess I'll just let the music play out for the rest of this. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!